Hello and welcome to Kicking Tires. My name is Jimmy,
And I'm Justin.
and today is November 24th, and that means we got some great automotive news coming to you. We got a new Lincoln sedan, Corolla GR or GR Corolla, maybe. There's some EV news from Genesis. There's a brand new Ranger that's kind of exciting for Justin, anyways. For the rest of the world, maybe
The
we'll see.
European market.
And then there's a dealer in Oakland that has a RAV4 Prime for $96,000. So quite a bit of topics. So let's dive right into it first. The first part is Lincoln. So Lincoln. Do you remember that brand? Because you might not, because it's been a while since Lincoln's really done much. But they are developing, they are developing a brand new sedan for the Asian market. We're not going to get this here in North America, which kind of
Not even the
sucks.
Asian market. It's just China.
Yeah.
China. That's all it is. And it's not like, here in North America, Lincoln doesn't have that much of a presence anymore. But I think in China, they're still big enough and important enough that they have their own market specific model that's kind of unique.
Well,
Yeah. And it's a
what's
sedan.
what's kind of cool is in China, a lot of American companies, like luxury American cars, are huge there. Like Buick. I was doing some research on the car that I have this week. It's huge in China. Like they love Buicks over there. It's one of the most beloved luxury brands. And same goes for Lincoln. This is a really good looking sedan, this new Zephyr. So it's basically a Ford Mondeo, but with Lincoln clothing on it. It looks like a Audi A6, or sorry, not A6, A7 from the back end with that kind of slope, uh, kind of roof profile. It looks absolutely stunning. I love the front end as well.
Mhm.
It's a really, really good looking car.
Yeah. It's definitely a good looker, but it is very Audi, and I also see a little bit of Jaguar in there, like the newer XF. I think I see.
Yeah, the taillights have the XEXF kind of look to it.
Yeah, which is kind of keeping in the theme because that's kind of how that Mondeo from James Bond when we first saw that we're like, damn, that is a Jaguar slash Aston Martin,
Yeah.
and they've done it again.
They just took that drawing book again. I mean,
Took the same idea and ran with it. And they did a good job with it. I mean, it
yeah,
looks pretty damn good outside and inside too,
yeah,
with
the
a
inside's really
possibly
nice.
controversial screen setup. But I,
So,
I think it's okay for the Chinese market.
so it's what they call a coast to coast screen. And basically what that means is from the left of the dash to the right of the dash, you get screens. It's absolutely enormous. I don't think it's going to cause any issues. I mean, there's a lot of new vehicles that have that. Like the brand new S Class has that. The Wagoneer, Grand Wagoneer from Jeep kind of has something similar as well. Like I think it's just really cool to look at. Is it functional? Hard to say. Gotta gotta try to see. But it absolutely is gorgeous. It's very technologically advanced.
Yeah, I think it looks right on this type of vehicle. Like it's kind of semi-premium and it is kind of it's very tech forward and they're specifically targeting Gen Z buyers. And that's the thing is whenever you get a car like this in America, the reviews just destroy it because it's all touchscreen. There's no where's the button to do this? Where's the button to do that? And it's every review is just like that. Whenever they replace a single button with a touchscreen function, it just goes on, and that's all they talk about. But I
Actually,
think these markets are a little bit better.
it's a good point that you point out because a lot of people do say that in a lot of the reviews. I recently dropped the Hyundai Tucson review. If you don't know, the new Tucson's interior is basically
Slab of gloss
buttonless.
black.
It's buttonless. It's gloss black. It's touchscreen, touch controls. I drove that for a full week, and like I was in and out of that car, and I was actually using it because I want to see, if having a full touchscreen is an actual issue. And honestly, that whole week, I had no problems with it.
Yeah, and
Use
that's 1 week, right? Like that's not someone who lived with this car leasing it for 3, 4 years. After
Yeah,
you had a month with it, like, come on, that's not gonna
you
matter.
get fully used to it. Like I had CarPlay on there, so I had just all my CarPlay stuff. And when I was, dealing with anything volume related, it was the steering wheel. So I had full control of that with my left thumb, anyways. And then a lot of people say, "Oh, the climate control, you got to press buttons. Everything is not touch. It's like on the touch screen. You press that auto button, and it does everything that you need."
Yeah.
Like
Why do people think they're smarter than you know what my pet peeve is when you get into someone's car
journalists.
when you get into someone's car,
I know,
not just journalists,
I know where you're getting.
and they have the heat set to max because they think they're smarter than the car's thermostat or whatever you call it, the automatic climate control system. The car does not heat up faster when you set it to max, and then when it does get to max, you're melting and you're sweating.
So a lot of people just think, oh, you put it to max and it blows out hot air right away. It actually doesn't. If you set the right temperature, like on my cars, I always have it around 20, 21 degrees. If, I jump in the car and it's cooler than that, it doesn't start blowing air out right from the beginning. And because, well, the car has to warm up a little bit first. If it blows out air right now, right at the beginning, it's going to be cold air that's blowing out. Or if it's, the flip side, in the summer, it's going to blow hot air when it first comes up. So
Mm-hmm.
what it does is the fan speed is always lower. Once it
Yeah.
reaches that temperature, then it ramps up. Like even my 2010 CRV does that.
Yeah.
Cars are smart enough to do that. You don't have to override what the computer wants to do. Just let it do its thing. Press
Yeah.
auto.
You just need auto and then like set your temperature once. Like when you first get the car, set it once and never touch it again. That menu can hide in the back of whatever software. Like there's so many buttons on my RAV4 has like an eco cool and it has buttons that I don't know what it even does for the climate control. And I've never touched them. Same with my M2. There's buttons that have never been touched because there was never any need to. I like that. I like the heated seat button and then auto. That's it. That's
Yeah.
the only thing I touch.
And yeah, on the Tucson, the heated seat button is very easy accessible. That isn't on the touchscreen itself. That's a physical button right in the center. Like honestly, it works so well. And the defrost, like it was auto defrost in the rear window as well. So like I just pressed, not even, I started the car with a remote start. It heated up the car by itself. The defrost was on. When I jumped in, it was done.
But how
What's
often do you still hear journalists talking
every single
about
time?
exactly, and they don't even know how these cars work?
Every
It's like,
single time. Every
yeah,
journalist.
that that is why I keep roasting journalists on this
Yeah.
podcast.
But slightly off topic.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll just add that into our list of topics. That's totally fine. Uh, but this Lincoln, if it was to come to North America, it won't sell. It just won't because I don't think we're in the market of sedans anymore.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're all about SUVs here in North America, which as an SUV owner, and you are as well. Like I get it. It is technically is more practical. It can store a little bit more. But what I hate about SUVs is just like when you have everything in your trunk, it's not like in a trunk. It's just behind your
Isolated.
back seat.
You
So like
hear
things go
everything flying
flying.
around.
Exactly. And it's because it's a big box, it's a
Yeah.
lot louder inside.
Yep. You hit a speed bump and then you hear the cargo cover or something do a
Yeah.
little
Just
flap.
there's definitely like disadvantage. I'm not even talking about like driving dynamics because it's a 2010 CRV. There's no driving dynamics. And yes, I am probably one of the rare ones that lowered their CRV. Let's be
Okay,
honest.
we'll change that.
No, my wife is 5'2". It's actually easier for her to get in and out now than it was before, and she likes the height where it is. But you know, it's just me. I like the the practicality, but like I said, definitely some disadvantages there. Let's move on from Lincoln. Let's talk about Toyota because they released a photo today, or not today, a while back, but they released a video elsewhere as well. And in it, it's a picture of the interior of the current gen Corolla, which I kind of like. You know, the Corolla is a good looking vehicle. I just think it's super underpowered. But most people that are buying Corollas won't care that it's super underpowered. They just want a reliable vehicle. Most people are even buying the hybrid. But what it is this picture of the Corolla in the background, there's a very small speck. And this small speck, and people are saying it's a GR Corolla. The GR Corolla, if you don't know, it's going to be the next kind of hot hatch that Corolla is making, or Toyota is making. It's going to be based off the Yaris GR or GR Yaris, which has a 1.6 liter turbocharged 3-cylinder, and that makes 257 horsepower. It's all-wheel drive, it's 6-speed manual. A lot of enthusiasts are loving and lusting over that vehicle. Sadly, we don't get that here, but we may get the Corolla. So people are going absolutely nuts over this because it's cool. You know, I gotta, agree that a GR Corolla is pretty cool on paper.
Yeah, I mean, an all-wheel drive hatchback with a rally engine, like it's lit, right? I don't know. I think Corolla is so meh right now. Like I think it is at the lowest of its low right now in 2021. The hybrid is awesome, but the hatchback did not live up to expectations. You know, everyone, all the enthusiasts that oh, look at that Corolla hatch, I'm gonna put that on my short list. And you get inside and it's cramped. It's pretty slow. Uh, there's nothing that great about it. It looks handsome, but it's really not that special of a car. Same with a sedan. It's got the recycled engines from before, and even the upgraded engine is not really all that impressive in terms of performance or fuel economy.
The 2-liter, it only makes 168.
160, but it feels like less somehow. I think it's the CVT.
But the CVT is cool. It has one physical gear. Yeah, it has one physical gear, so it doesn't feel like a CVT off the start.
It still feels really meh. Like that's the problem. I think the Corolla, it's trying to make moves right now, like with the hatchback and the Apex edition, and it's just not. They're not getting any traction with that, for lack of a better term. And so the GR, I think that is kind of nice. Like I think that is going to revamp this brand because the Corolla is slowly fading into the background for young buyers and new buyers because of where it stands in the marketplace. Yeah, you only buy it because you plan on keeping this for 20 years, which is not really like a young person's mentality these days.
No, most younger buyers, they want to keep a car for a few years and change it out for something faster with more tech and whatnot, right? The Corolla doesn't do that. I mean,
from day one, it's already behind. It's been that way for a while.
But the Corolla, especially the XSE in the hatch, it looks really good.
It's a good looking car. It just doesn't have any performance or practicality to really back it up and make you want to buy it.
Yeah, that's the sad part about it. I really liked the Corolla when I drove it, like just the way it looks, because like in a parking lot, it stood out. It was especially because I had the special edition. It was in that special edition red. It had like the gloss black bits and pieces on it. Yeah, had gloss black wheels.
Well, I had the Corolla L courtesy car, or LE.
L for
with the hubcaps.
Loser?
That's what I felt like driving that car. Not gonna lie. Would not recommend that car at all. And it averaged 10 liters per 100k driving it like a granny. Like it's such a miserable car.
Granny with the heaviest foot.
No, man. Like I went because it was highway too, like a mix of highway too, and I'm always in a slow lane too, and there's nothing you can do. It's awful.
Yeah, the yeah they definitely put the Corolla in a back burner, but hopefully this GR Corolla is an actual thing and we can see it. It's going to compete closely with like the Golf R, I think. That kind of hatchback,
Well, if
like
it's
turbocharged
running the
engine.
1.6, it's kind of in an awkward spot between.
It's kind of in the middle.
It's kind of where the Veloster end lands.
Yeah, but
I
this
think
has all-wheel drive, or should
it
have
does,
all-wheel
but it has
drive.
less power, and it's probably got less power potential due to that 1.6. The Golf R is in a league of its own because you can tune those up to 500 and destroy supercars all day long.
Yeah,
That is what makes that car really stand out, and it's a sleeper. So the Golf R has kind of got its market cornered there, but this does not. Even though it's got all-wheel drive, I think being a 1. Well, speculate. This is all speculation right now,
yeah.
right? So if it is the GR Yaris motor, it doesn't have the quirk of the GR Yaris, which is it's a one-off body, it's a really short wheelbase,
It's gonna be
and that's
like
kind of
the Yaris is light.
yeah, it's such a unique like homologation special. You don't really see those anymore, especially from a major manufacturer like Toyota.
Mhm.
And so the Yaris, I think, has more charm and desirability to it. It doesn't have to live up to that performance standard. But the Corolla is going to be measured up with the Type R, and I think it's
No, I don't think it's
not
gonna
gonna
be.
be
It's not gonna be
there.
Type R. I think it's like it's gonna be I'm better than your Civic Si kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and the Civic Si is so expensive now that fair point.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's like you said, it's all speculation. We'll see what actually comes out. I'm curious. I like the looks of it, so a little bit more power is always nice. So we'll have to wait and see what Toyota gives us. I mean, Toyota's given us some pretty cool things recently, so we can only wish for the best. Speaking of cool things recently, Genesis they they dropped the GV70 EV like month ago or so. And that's based off the Ionic 5 as well as the Kia EV6. But they also released a brand new EV version of the GV70, Motor Trend's SUV of the year. So this GV70 looks exactly like, well,
A
a regular
GV70.
GV70. It looks exactly the same. The only difference is the grill is blanked out as, it's an EV. It doesn't need a grill. And there's no exhaust tips on the back. It's taking the styling from the sport model, which I do personally like because the sport model just has the right body cladding on the bottom as well as the right steering wheel. Because if you don't know, Genesis
The two spoke.
cars, yeah, you can have two style steering wheels. The three spoke in the sportier models, or the two spoke that looks super weird. Kind of like
It's kind of marine.
the Ice Age, the
The squirrel thing?
yeah,
Or no, that's not.
Just,
It's
you know what
whatever that creature is
the
called.
the it's a super long like Hey Arnold's head, like it's just
Sid.
weird.
Sid from Ice Age.
It's just weird. It's
It's
a
a
weird
sloth.
steering wheel. Was he a sloth?
He's
He
a
moved.
sloth. Sid the sloth.
He moved pretty quick for a sloth.
Yeah.
Um, anyways,
The sloth from Zootopia was far more accurate.
yeah, especially at the DMV, like 100% on point there. But yeah, like it's a really good looking car. I like the GV70. I like the way it drives, and this is going to have dual motors, 483 horsepower. That's a whole lot of power. I think it's going to be great. Um, and the dynamics of Genesis has always been good. Like when I drove the GV70, I had the sport model with the 3.5 liter turbo. Unofficially, when I had traction control turned off and stability control turned off, the rear end kicked out pretty well on corners. Unofficially, of course. I never did that on the press card that I had.
Allegedly.
Yeah. It's just the dynamics of it. It was great. It felt like a German, like a GLC or X5. because it felt like I can whip that thing around. It didn't feel like a Lexus. Didn't feel safe.
Yeah,
which
I'm
which
curious
is
what the
great.
price point will be on this thing.
Oh, it's gonna be way too expensive.
Is it
I
gonna be like way too expensive? Because like a Q, what is that Audi called? The e-tron.
the e-tron,
I think
the
that's
the,
like
the ID
90K.
the ID4
Not the ID4. The ID4 one
oh
is reasonably priced. The Q4 is normally priced like
oh
60,
the
but they have the.
e-tron four-wheel drive version e-tron
It's
thing.
very confusing Audi's naming structure.
The
The 55,
the
uh,
the Q8 looking one.
the e-tron 55 Quattro.
Thanks.
Yeah,
No idea what the name
like
was.
the name doesn't line up with the rest of the Audi lineup, so it's very confusing. But that is basically like what Q5 size,
Yeah.
and that thing is about 90 to 100, which
I
I think is a big step up for a lot of people.
I think this is going to be similar to like base model Y pricing.
Base model Y, which has gone up significantly.
Yeah, because in terms of performance, is very similar to that. Because 0 to 60 in this about 4.5 seconds.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, just in terms of performance standards, it's going to be very similar to
Did
that.
they say how much range they estimate?
I don't believe it did. Let me take
Electric
a quick.
range.
Oh yeah, doing a search will probably be easier.
400 kilometers.
It's acceptable.
Solid.
Acceptable. And there's 800-volt charging available as well.
Nice.
So rapid charger.
Yeah, Model Y long range is around 500 kilometers for those that aren't that familiar.
I'm thinking like maybe Mach E GT as well. Because it
Did
should
you
be around.
see? They did a comparison with the Mach E GT. I think Edmunds Mach E GT versus Model Y, and the funny thing is Mach E won in every. It was a performance comparison. Like they want to see which one's sportier, and Mach E won in every dimension, but it lost in the end because you can't get the full power out of it for more than 5 seconds at a time.
Oh,
So you can't even do a quarter-mile run. You can't track it whatsoever because you only get full power for 5 seconds, whereas the Model Y just gives you full
right.
power.
Because it has that special mode for a track where it cuts power but gives you like more of it over time. I think it was.
Yeah, it's just weird, like how
I can't remember what they called
I'm curious if the reviews are gonna matter, because I could see that being kind of lame. But no one's tracking these cars anyway, so
No.
I think realistically, though,
we have a friend that tracked his Model Y.
His model, once, and will probably never do it again.
No, he got very scared because he lost braking.
Yeah, and so there you go. It's like, again, this is journalists doing what journalists do, and they point out their 1 in a million scenario and say that, okay, the Tesla is a better car because of this 1 in a million thing. Whereas every objective measure, steering feel, braking, acceleration, everything, we prefer the way the Mustang drives, but too bad. We want to flex our journalist chops and see if Ford does anything about it. I think that's why,
Was it Carlos that did the review?
Yeah.
Because he's part of Edmunds.
Yeah, Carlos did that review, and I think that is a mistake on their end. Is you're talking about
probably
if
Edmunds overlords, because I don't think Carlos generally would. Because like seeing Carlos's previous reviews,
no, I saw them do that. Like if one car has a fundamentally fatal flaw, which I'm not denying that the Mustang does, but it's fundamentally fatal. I've seen them. I think it was the Focus ST that they also destroyed because the brakes catch on fire. But that is more fair.
I mean,
that is more fair. Or it was the Golf R, one or the other, that the brakes, I think both have pretty terrible brakes. But like one car had really bad brakes, and then just like everything else is good, but too bad.
I think for a lot of journalists and like outlets, it's like if it fails in one spot, like badly fails, then it fails overall. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of like crash test ratings and HTSA. Like when they fail one thing, it's like
Oh
they give
yeah.
you a
Oh,
fail.
like Consumer Reports, if one car does gets a poor rating in the headlights, it's like, oh,
Mm,
we can't recommend this car anymore. We'll recommend this model that's totally outdated
I,
and overpriced,
I,
like
got, I got
over it.
I got beef with Consumer Reports actually
Oh, everyone.
because like as you know, I'm a CPST, a child passenger safety technician. I work with a lot of car seats because that's what I do. It's kind of like my thing now. And Consumer Reports, they reported like a lot of car seats being bad because they're a little bit difficult to install. Which, like, yes, I get if it's difficult to install, it might not be the easiest, but why does that matter? You're installing that seat
Yeah, it's
once.
for safety. Like,
The safety of the seat is what matters. Like they have one seat that's rated higher because it's easier to install, but they don't look at the crash test rating on it. Like,
oh. Well, I guess
why?
the thing is, if there is a greater risk that the parents install it wrong and it just fails altogether, that is
Like, I'm gonna
lack
be
of safety.
honest. I've seen quite a bit of car seats, since just getting my certification on it, and most of them has been wrong. Um,
Yeah.
most of them
Oh,
have been wrong.
speaking of Consumer Reports, I remember they said this thing recently in the last 6 months about dash cams. Now that we're
Mm,
talking about how our industries and whatnot, they said, dash cams, they're great and all, but you have to run the wire, and there's airbags in the headliners and stuff. We can't really recommend them. It's like, but they've saved so many people, like in so many bad situations, that you're talking about one hypothetical that really has no. The thing is, there's no proof that, like, if you show me the body count of everyone who's been killed by dash cam wires being shot at them by curtain airbags, then yeah, okay. But there's no proof, there's no evidence. They can just make some weird speculation. And I think this is the problem with American culture in general. Like, going back to the Lincoln, right? How it's all touchscreen. Every other country, you go to Asia, Japan, China, Europe, all over the place, and they've gone all touchscreen. It's like there's one like odd, like someone's gonna be drinking their Starbucks and gonna be trying to change their station, and they're gonna end up in the opposite lane. And it's like you're there's some like weird ass hypothetical that Americans like to base and exaggerate on, and that just ruins innovation. And it's like stuff that can actually help people, that can improve lives, but you're so afraid to touch, because that's kind of why I like Tesla. I'm not gonna lie. I love Tesla for pushing all these boundaries, because they do things that people hate, like the yoke, which doesn't really matter. Like, it doesn't offend me in any way.
90%
uh,
of the time, it's absolutely fine.
exactly. And like everything that Tesla does, like, they call it full self-driving and it isn't, and every auto journalist has to roast them for it. And yeah, it's definitely not, but their autopilot stuff works really good. Like,
It is one of the better ones. Yeah, absolutely. I
yeah.
actually did read that article on the dash cam,
Mm,
and because when I saw that, I was thinking, I was like, I was in a car crash and I had dash cam wires in front of an airbag.
yeah.
Because when I was in my Accord, I got hit on the side. My airbag blew on this side, my current airbag. And that's exactly where I had the dash cam wires.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Yeah, because
Car's
the curtain airbags are meant to blow through. I don't think they realize this, how airbags work. But that plastic steering wheel that you have, the badge, like, that's
fix
how
that.
it breaks that stuff. Like, those A pillars, after you get into an accident, your airbags deploy, you have to replace those.
Yeah,
You
they,
like,
they
like,
don't
it's like
come out of
talking
the
to a baby.
seams.
They don't like magically go around the rubber seal, and like, your seats, if your seat airbags deploy, you have to replace those.
Yeah.
Like, I actually had I used to have a smart car. I don't know if you remember. The seat the seat airbag deployed by itself once going over a pothole
Oh,
when my brother was driving.
that's fine.
Like it wasn't in an accident or anything; it just went off.
How did
Yeah.
that go off? And one of
Oh,
our
the ride
friends,
is so harsh.
yeah, but one of our friends also has a smart car that he tracks.
Oh, mine was the older generation. I don't know.
Oh, right. Yours was
Yeah,
the diesel.
the first gen. Yeah.
Right. Yours was the really bad one, the diesel. I remember driving
No,
at
the
a
diesel is superior,
oh,
frankly, because
sorry.
I had both. I actually had both in the family, and the diesel gets uses half the fuel as the gas version because the gas version averages 7 to 8 liters per 100K on premium. The diesel
Oh, it needed
averages
premium.
4 liters on diesel, so you spend half as much on gas. Both have terrible transmissions. The diesel has a little bit more torque, the gas has a little bit more horsepower, but they're both slow as hell. So you can't evaluate them from a performance standpoint, but
Uh,
just on fuel economy alone, it's double.
I just
So
remember I drove yours at the Metrotown parking lot. I didn't realize it didn't have power steering. I was like, "Ooh,
oh yeah.
this steering feel."
Yeah. It's only when you're parallel parking where it really becomes an issue.
But
Um,
I mean, if
but
we're talking about the best smart car, the best one was the last one that they made, the
yeah,
EV one.
and you can get manual in the normal one too.
No, the EV one was the best. I had that for a week. I had 80 kilometers of range in that. I that was when I was still working at the office, so it wasn't that bad. I charged it every day.
It's a city car. It's not. It's not meant for people who live in the suburbs.
Oh, I took it on the highway. It was very scary.
I took. I maxed out my smart at 140
On a track.
on the highway one.
Uh, uh,
On highway one, yeah.
okay.
Did I ever tell you I lent my IQ to an employee, and he came back the next day and he said, "This car at 160 is not very stable." You're not supposed to take it to 160. He lives in Port Moody and we work in Richmond, right? So he hits a highway on the way back. He's
That's
like, yeah, it's not very good at 160.
that's impressive. I didn't know the IQ can get up there.
If you wait long enough, it can. It can do like 120, 130 pretty easily if you also wait. But yeah, 160 I would
Downhill
not
with
recommend.
backwind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Should we get back on track?
Yeah, we should. Let's talk about the Ford Ranger. This is probably your favorite topic of the week. So Ford Ranger
Well, it is and it isn't. Depends how much of this makes it over
to our shores.
to our shores because I
So
love the Ranger. I love the outgoing Ranger, the Ranger Raptor, the Toyota Hilux, but none of these trucks even come here.
yeah,
We get our version, which
we get
is
a watered down version.
frankly garbage again because Americans have terrible taste and Americans have terrible buying decisions and they don't care about competition because you look at the Ranger versus its competitor, and it was competitive. But then you bring it over here, and whatever they did to it just ruined that car. And it it was like so promising, and then they brought it over, and it just flopped. I think.
I
I mean,
don't
it didn't
see.
totally flop. The Ranger does sell some.
Do they? Because I don't see many of them on the road. Like I see one every now and then, but I see a lot more like Colorados, tons more Tacomas. I
Mhm.
may even see like more Frontiers than Rangers.
Possibly. No, definitely not Frontiers. Ranger, I think we're not in the right region for it. Like,
Mm,
yeah, that's the thing is the Ranger is the numbers don't lie, it sells, but I don't know, man. What we get here is pretty disappointing.
yeah,
I
I mean
test drove it. I did not like it.
the so the problem with the Ranger that we get is not only is was the car already out for a while elsewhere, so we got basically an older version here. We got the older infotainment from the start. We had the older interior materials. It was
Hmm.
just everything was a step back comparing the rest of Ford's lineup. And it was mainly because we just, Ford North America was like saying, why bother? It's something that's cheap to bring over. We'll just sell it. We'll have something in the market. We'll just, have it there. So with this next generation, it's available in rest of the world other than here in North America for now, but we'll see what actually comes. I mean, it looks really cool. It looks like a blend of F-150 as well as that Maverick. It has a good looking front end. The back is kind
Yeah,
of cool as well.
I love that they've just tied that design language all back together with
Mhm.
the rest of the Ford lineup. That's a big win, I think.
Yeah,
Um, it
the grill and then the headlight, daytime running light. I think it's just good enough to know that it's a Ford, even if you covered up that badge.
yeah. It's grown a little bit. It's about 2 inches wider, I think. The track is 2 inches wider. I don't know if the overall body is.
Mm,
And what they've done is they've pushed the wheels a bit further out. They've moved the shocks from, so you have your frame. They've moved the shocks from the inside of the frame to the outside of the frame, which improves ride, but also improves the width inside the bed. And
mm.
so they say it can take a full size pallet now, which is pretty good for a mid size. And see, the Ranger sells is the market leader in Europe,
Hmm.
not the Toyota, not the VW. It's the market leader. It sells it accounts for basically 40% of Europe's truck sales.
Oh wow.
So it's a solid vehicle, and they're just building on that success. Whereas here it was kind of reintroduced, but not in its own old spirit, which I think the old Ranger, I would not mind something like that to just like a utilitarian workhorse.
Yeah, it
Um,
was it was cheap and cheerful. Like
yeah,
maybe not cheerful, but it was a cheap workhorse that did what you needed to do. A truck.
and cheap and they're still like they still hold their value
Yeah.
because they are a utilitarian vehicle, and utilitarianism never dies. I think they're still cheap to run, parts are plentiful. But yeah, I think I don't get why we get such a crappy version. Like I look at the Toyota, right, and the Tacoma, as popular as that car is, it just doesn't look anywhere near as good as what they get in Europe and the
Yeah,
rest of the world. Like
that's true.
the
The
one we
Hilux
get
are
has like a confused fish looking face, and the Hilux just looks so much better. uh, I don't know. I don't know why Americans get the short end of the stick in terms of that, because some product planner decided that we should get a different front end for that car, and some product planner also ruined the Ranger, I think. The Ranger, yeah. So sales wise, it is in Canada. They do sell more Rangers than Colorados.
oh,
I guess just the Colorado, by nature of being around longer, it's just there's more of a
we see more.
presence.
Yeah.
Because the Ranger's only been around for like 2 years, 3 years. I didn't like the current Ranger that we get here in North America for one specific reason, which is just how floaty it was. Whoever did the suspension tuning, I tried both the regular one and the FX4, and just it felt unsafe on the highway. I don't know if that's because the bed was unloaded, but the I'm like, if I got to tow, it can tow quite a bit. It can tow like 7,500 pounds, but if I've got to tow, my 6,000 pound trailer with it, I don't feel safe in this on the highway. Whereas the F-150 that I ended up getting, because buying pre-owned, it was still cheaper than buying a new midsize. The F-150 feels very confident on the highway, and it just can tow a lot better. That I think. Oh, I never tried towing with the Ranger because without towing, it already felt dangerous. I didn't even want to try it with
Mhm.
towing.
I remember
Yeah.
when you bought the truck, you were looking at pricing on the Ranger versus like even a brand new F-150. You weren't far off. That was another thing I remember you said you didn't like as well.
Well, yeah, they have bigger incentives on the regular F-150s, at least at the time. Not right now with the chip shortage, but the F-150, the Ranger I was looking at was probably about 42. And the F-150s that I would realistically get, I can go with pretty bare bones. So they were still, I think, still probably about 10 grand more for
Hmm.
an F-150, but you get so much more capability. I just think everything is very well thought out in the full size segment, and it's just not in the mid size. Like every mid size has so much compromise that like any full size from the big three, well, maybe not the GMC at the time, but even the Tundra and the Titan, like all of these I thought were pretty decent. Like they had, because they knew these are our most important vehicles, the half ton vehicles. These are these need to be competitive, I think. And they really put their best foot forward. I liked pretty much everything I saw. And even the trail boss of the old one, I was like, this is decent. Uh, ugly interior aside, because it wasn't that ugly compared to what I got with the 4.3-inch screen. Mine was a 2016, right? So, um, yeah,
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Yeah. I mean, this new Ranger that they released here, the interior is definitely a step above. The infotainment is like the Mach E one, so it's like the vertical
yeah,
screen. It's absolutely massive. It takes center stage. There's a
yeah.
digital cluster as well. Like it looks like a car from 2022.
It's a choice between a 10-inch or a 12-inch screen, so they're both pretty decent size
Yeah,
screens.
even
Um,
a 10 is pretty big, honestly.
yeah, it looks. And the interesting thing about Ford's press release, they really really stress that this is meant to be a work vehicle. Like this is meant to do everything. This is meant to let you, I don't know. I feel like the mid-size segment in North America is very much, this is your recreational truck. If you have real work to do, you buy a full size. Like you don't
Yeah,
buy, like this is your city truck. This is what you put child seats in. This is what you go gardening with.
it
That's
doesn't fit
that's
child
about,
seats.
yeah. It it barely, yeah. I remember
Ranger
it's,
has problems fitting child seats.
yeah. I think the whole mid-size segment does, except for the Ridgeline.
The Ridgeline is probably one of the only ones. Like even in the uh, Santa Cruz, slightly
Actually,
different. But
the Gladiator is pretty long.
Gladiator is okay because it
Yeah,
fits like the unlimited Jeeps. It's
yeah,
basically the same size. So, but Gladiator, honestly, I think it's like yes, it's midsize, but because it's a Jeep, it's at a different class of its own. So
yeah.
I
It's
don't
priced at the full size level,
exactly. It's like
and
$60,000 to begin Gladiator. And then
yeah,
like if you stack on options that you want, like if you want the Mojave, if you want, better engine, it's like
it's
80,
very hard to
$90,000
be
truck.
like you see the Ram Rebel, and you're like, this is so much value for them. Like, I don't know. I feel like it's so much more value for the money. You're getting so much more truck, but obviously it doesn't have the same off road capability. But
No.
it's you know, for the money, you're like, damn, that doesn't
Yeah,
really make sense to get the Jeep. But the Jeeps hold their value just like the Tacomas, and
they do.
that's kind of the kicker, I guess.
And you would think because they hold their value, they have pretty good like lease incentives. They
No.
don't.
They know what they have, and they know if you want it, you want it. Like there's no reason to incentivize anything, right?
I
Like
I was just curious because when they announced the 4 by E, I was like, huh, 4 by E, that sounds pretty good. I looked at the pricing, I was like, oh, okay, it's going to cost me like $700 a month to
but
lease a
then
4 by E.
okay, so here's the thing is that, throughout the chip shortage, I think the trucks got hit the worst.
Hmm,
And the truck that you continuously see that I feel like dealers are honestly overstocked with is the Gladiator, because it's it doesn't do the work stuff that well, and it's so expensive that it's not like they're discounting them, but there's a lot of Gladiators on, like, 1 year old Gladiators, brand new Gladiators. They've still got an abundance of those. Whereas you go on to, I went to Brentwood the other week, and the GM dealership there,
hmm.
Carter, is just empty. Like it's so sad. Like they can sell, but yeah, they have nothing to sell.
You know what?
Um,
You're absolutely right there because Carter is basically empty. I went to Coastal Ford, which is pretty big Ford dealership here in the Lower Mainland. Um, they had a bunch of used things, but not many new things. But when I picked up the Jeep Grand Cherokee L, there were a lot of Jeeps on lot at the Richmond dealership there. There were a lot of them.
Yeah, because I just don't think people who want a truck really are buying these.
Mhm.
Uh, I it's an awkward looking truck. Like that is part of the issue for me, but I still want I don't mind awkward looking vehicles, frankly.
You
But
love them.
I almost exclusively buy awkward looking vehicles. The problem is the base model is like 60K. And it's like if anyone needs to do work with their truck, they're not buying a 60K truck for
No.
they can buy a used full size and get way more usability out of it.
Yeah.
Um that's why I don't get the high, like the Rubicons are like 70, but the base like really crappy like 7-inch screen, like it feels like a base model when you get into that thing, and it's still 60K. I think their
I
base
I
price is
mean,
a little bit too high.
it's not 60K for the base. Like once you stack on a few options, you're looking at 60. I think a Gladiator comes in at like 50 something.
You can't buy it like
But
really
you can't
stripper.
but you can't really just like walk out of the dealer with the 50K model.
Like
And you say
I don't think you should either, because they're. I remember they were so base. Like who pays 55K for a truck that doesn't even have proximity key? Like that to me is shocking.
I think even the Rubicon doesn't come with proximity key. I think that was an
You
option.
option it. I think it's only like $400, but like it's pretty stripper. Like when you go
Yeah.
to the Sport S model, and it looks the part. Like it looks. You could put whatever wheels on it, obviously, but uh, automatic transmission is not even included.
I know you say the Gladiator Rubicon it's like 70. It like yes, it can be, but it really isn't. When you start to add things on, it's very expensive. I remember the Gladiator Rubicon that I had. It was like almost 90K. It was 80 something.
Okay, so base to base, the Rubicon base Gladiator starts at 56. The base Sport S, which is the really ugly, like you feel like you're driving the base model is 49. So there's $6,000 between the base and the Rubicon,
Mhm.
and that I think is kind of the issue. The Overland is only $4,000 more than the Sport, so the base is really high relative, because the Wrangler base model is pretty cheap compared to the Rubicon. Um,
I don't remember how much an unlimited is.
the Rubicon Unlimited. So the Rubicon Sport is 38. That's the two
Not
door.
the unlimited sport, you mean?
The two door.
Oh, two door. Okay,
The
so
two
the
door.
Wrangler Sport.
And the two door Rubicon is 51. There's $13,000 in between them.
Hmm.
That's like TRD Pro and TRD Sport
Yeah,
difference, right? So that difference, that kind of gap makes sense. Like if you don't actually plan on doing any real off-roading with it, you just want it for the sake of having a Jeep, then okay, you can buy a $40,000 Wrangler. But Gladiator, you don't have that low barrier to entry,
yeah.
and yeah, that I think is an obstacle that they. I don't know. I feel like they should be discounting these, because every lot has like quite a few, and you can tell that this thing does not sell
But
as
right
well as
now,
other
I don't think
trucks.
anyone's discounting anything. It's like, hey, if you want a car, hey, I have one in
Because
stock.
exactly, and that's the thing, is dealers are so desperate right now to squeeze every penny out of whatever inventory they have, which leads us on to our next topic, which is
Perfect segue.
the
It's a $96,000 RAV4
US
Prime. Yeah,
RAV4
US.
Prime.
That's so okay, let's go through what it is. So the MSRP for RAV4 Prime in the US is $49,659. The dealer adds a markup of $40,000. There's a ceramic coat
For
that's installed for
25.
2,500, low jack for 1,800, invisible shield for 1,400, can't really see the next thing. Is that LED?
I'm not sure. There's a
Something
trailer hitch,
LED,
I
something
think.
LED for 600, and then the last one is nitrogen filled tires for 500.
Yeah, and that brings us to a grand total of 96,442 US.
Yeah,
It looks like
nitro fill $500.
that is a joke. This dealer should burn to hell. And I don't know. Like the thing is, no one is actually buying this car, right? But what they've done is they've made people rethink. Okay, maybe this car is worth that a little bit more. And it's like you see the used one because the problem is not that they're not trying to sell this new one really for 100 grand because they know, okay, if I'm buying a RAV4 Prime, I'm buying it to save money, and I will never save 50 grand on fuel buying this car. Like it would never. The math just does not add up. If I had 100K to burn, I'm not buying a RAV4 Prime. But the thing is, when they want to mark up their used cars just a little bit more and sell their used cars for basically new MSRP or just slightly above MSRP for a used car, that's where this kind of levels it out a bit and it makes people reconsider that. But obviously, no one is buying this.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think here, at least in BC, you can't sell a car for higher than MSRP. A new car. You can
No,
sell
you
it.
can. There's dealer adjustment
There's still deal
on there.
adjustment. Hmm.
Yeah, so it's really. I think it's really just dependent on the the
How scummy the dealer
distributor,
is.
basically. No, on the manufacturers. Like some manufacturers, I guess they care more,
Hmm.
but in a sense, well, that's also why dealers try to add on so many like overpriced accessories and services.
Like $500 of nitrogen filled tires.
Yeah, or like a dash cam system that's 2 grand, and it's like you could buy this for $400 at
You can
overdrive.
buy a much better one at $400.
And it's like, um, yeah, I think there I have seen dealer markups like especially on the TRX, those kind of vehicles, ZL1s.
I keep seeing them, but on used trucks. So they're selling it as used, like the
Sometimes they can, yeah,
TRX,
loophole it where it's like one previous owner and the owner is like the
the
owner of the
dealer.
dealership's son.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of like cars, especially like the TRX, because there was first edition on sale for $180,000.
Mm.
And that was on sale locally at a dealership in Maple Ridge. I think it was. I think it was like 180K. It was used, but like super low kilometers. Still had the plastics on them, but they're selling it as used for 180. And I was like, who's buying this? Who's
Yeah.
crazy enough to spend that kind of money on a
Well, and
vehicle?
then on the flip side, you have like the Applewood like interest rates. Like finance any car for like 18% interest.
They, I understand why they do that though. Like I spoke with a mutual friend of ours, Alex, who used to work at a used BMW. I'm not going to name the name of the company itself, but a used BMW dealer. Um, and he had a lot of clients that came from overseas that has absolutely zero credit, would buy a whatever car with 24% interest just so that they can build credit. So like that's who it's for. Like I know like Applewood, um, they almost approve almost everyone. Of
Yeah.
course,
Just what rate you get
at what
is, yeah.
rate? Like if you're a college student with absolutely nothing, you might get a 36% interest rate, like something absolutely crazy. But they'll approve you, and you can get a car, you can start building credit, but at what cost?
Yeah. I it's that's a weird thing. I mean, we can go into it. We probably won't go in depth into it, but a lot of what the banks ask you to do to as far as credit goes is like show us how bad you can be with money before we'll lend you some money. And it makes no sense. Like, so when I was applying for my mortgage, they're like, you need to buy out or pay off the rest of your RAV4's lease. I'm like, The RAV4 lease doesn't come out of my account though. It's a company car. I'm like, why would I pay off a car that is a write-off that is not mine? I don't. You can see my bank records. Not a cent of my own money has come out to pay for this Rav4. Why would you tell me to to pay it off? And it's like the banks here don't really think straight, to be honest. And that's why we have kind of weird interest rates and why this stuff exists. TRX prices have kind of come back down to earth,
Oh,
where they're all around 130K. I think, because there's quite a few on the market. No dealer markup. One's advertised, you can buy it at MSRP, because guess what? When you flood the market with so many above MSRP, eventually reality kicks in. Uh, so you can buy a TRX at the Surrey dealership for 123,000, which is basically MSRP.
at
When
MSRP,
you
is it that much?
MSRP is like 100 plus
97.
options, but there's options.
Oh, yeah,
It's
that's
not
right.
it's
That's right.
not yeah,
That's right. I remember there were options.
yeah, like there's actually a lot of options. Yeah. But yeah, no, because people were trying to ask like 180, 200K for these things, and I don't think that if you bought it on that assumption that you could sell it for that much, good luck with that. You want one key fob instead of two for no charge? We'll take
What?
one of your key fobs. Yeah,
This is chip shortage at its best right here.
yeah. Oh, speaking of chip shortage, GM like backpedaled on their $500 discount because we're not offering heated seats on these models now, and they're now offering a $50 discount.
No,
So it's pretty
50
terrible
bucks,
to
50
not
bucks for
have
no
heated
have heated
seats.
seats. Hey, you know
Yeah,
where you can get heated seat covers?
Canadian Tire.
Oh, I was gonna say, don't you have some that you want to
No,
like
we don't
just?
sell covers.
Oh, I thought you had those like
We do the custom ones that you
the
can.
inserts.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Well,
but it's a
those
lot of
ones.
work.
Oh, okay.
But it's more than $50. So
All right. So don't do that then.
yeah, no. But yeah, the truck market is kind of crazy. I think that the key is I want to like a lot of people that have cars and are kind of into cars, they're always under the impression that if you see these prices on Craigslist, oh, my car is worth this much now compared to when I bought it. Your car is not worth, you did not appreciate anything until the money is physically in your account. Unless you have sold it and unless the money has cleared, you did not you do not have a real appreciating asset. People can ask anything for the car. Uh, you know, People are trying to ask 60, 70K for Type R's. How many of those really sold for 60, 70, minus the limited editions? But the regular ones, people were trying to ask that. None of them. No one got above 70K for a Type R. No one got even above 60K for a non-LE Type R, because the market is not that strong. Just because there are ads on there that cost nothing to make, anyone can put up a Craigslist ad. Um, it doesn't even have to. The car doesn't even have to exist. Frankly speaking, I'm looking at off-roaders right now that don't even exist. Doesn't like this is, I think, important buying and selling advice. Don't assume your car is worth that much until you have a firm, real offer. If you walk into a dealership with your Type R or whatever car, and the dealer offers you this much, okay, then it's actually worth that much. But there's a reason why dealerships only offer you 45, 50K. Doesn't matter that you saw one for 80K listed. That car's been on the market for 3 months and may not even exist. But yeah, at the end of the day, don't, hedge your bets, I guess, based on speculated value. Um, yeah, unless a dealership is willing to pay you that much, it's not worth that much. Which, if you have dealers are paying really good money. That is the flip
They
side of
are.
the coin, is that you're getting really reasonable offers. So we had an IS that was leased back in 2018, and last year I already wanted to unload it. And last year I only wanted 29 for it, and I couldn't get 29 for it. Um, because I saw market price was around 35 for it. I'm like, okay, I'll take 29, 30, and it was like, yeah, they weren't really down to take it for that price. 2 months ago, this I sold it back to dealer for 34, which is way more than I even
Hmm.
wanted last year. So they not
It's
not
good
only
that you hold
paid
off.
for the lease, the remaining lease that for the last year, but yeah, we got more for that car, and the dealership sells it for more. So the inflation is kind of crazy right now, that how much cars are going for. Um, if you don't, I think another piece of buying advice is just, if you don't need it, maybe you can hold off a bit. So I have friends asking me, "Hey, I'm interested in this Mark 7 GTI. Um, it's got 50,000 K on it. It's a dealer, Volkswagen dealer selling it. It's selling for 31." I'm like, "Well, how desperate are you in need of a car? Because you can just still order new cars. Like, that's the thing, is new cars are still being made, just at a much slower pace. But you can go and order a Mark 8 GTI for $3,000 more with the full warranty, without the 50,000 K of wear, and you're the first owner, and you can lease it, finance it, however you want to deal with that, at a more competitive rate. And if you can afford to wait the 4 months for that car, or 6 months, just wait, because you'll get a better deal. Like, it's still, you're not going to get like discounts or anything, but you're still going to get a better value than paying for an inflated used car price. Um, the market is going to regulate a little bit, and I think uh, prices should be more realistic eventually. But a
It's
lot
kind
of
of
these cars
it's
are
kind of
not
when though.
like, yeah, it there's no end in sight, really. Like, things are taking a long, long time. But I think if you can get a new one. But the problem is, with the really, really hot cars like the RAV4 Prime, like the Siennas, like the NX hybrids, these kind of cars, they're now on a 2 year plus waiting list.
Yep.
And if you don't have a trade in, you keep getting bumped down on that list.
Yeah,
Like,
because
that is,
they bump up anyone that has a trade in because they want to have a car that they can sell.
yeah, the dealer wants to sell it to this other person more than even though you're both buying it for the same price, they can get a new piece of inventory in.
And
And
sell it for more.
it makes sense. It
Yeah,
makes honest business sense
yeah,
that for the same price, like, yeah, that you would take that other customer, let them cut it ahead of you in line. And so, yeah, a lot of with the luxury cars and stuff like that, I think hold off a bit. If it is an absolute necessity, if it is a ProMaster, like some kind of work vehicle that you just need, then you gotta bite the bullet and just pay the inflated price. But if it's like a sports car or whatever, a fun car, and you can wait a bit, just wait a bit. I feel like,
yeah, definitely.
yeah.
You're gonna wait a bit for basically any car, anyways. At this point, you're better off waiting it out than
Hmm.
you know paying the insane markups on something that's slightly used.
Yeah, because the problem is you're gonna regret this in 4 years.
Oh,
Because,
I don't think it'll take 4 years for someone to regret it.
yeah, like, if you bought a 20, say you the choice between like a 2018 GTI versus a 2022. So now that car has no warranty because it's past the 4 year mark. Well, by next year, even with your 2 extra years of certified pre-owned, you're still going to be out of warranty before the new car. And because that's an outgoing model, well, it's a previous model year, it's going to be worth less than the current model year. And so not waiting that 6 months is really expensive in the long run. So
Mm.
patience is rewarded. I think, yeah, just good buying advice.
Yeah. Finishing off with some advice, actual good advice,
Mm.
unlike some of the other stuff that we have given previously.
Ranted in
Uh,
the past. Yeah.
but that's about it for this week. Thank you so much for looping in with us this week, and we'll catch you next week with some more automotive news.
See you next week.